welcome to ScreenHour. It's two Muppets chatting stuff about films, TVs, games, and this is our first episode, so I imagine it's going to be terribly ropey, but yeah.
Still trying to figure things out. I suppose we should introduce ourselves, I guess. Who are you?
I'm Mikey Canner.
And
you are?
Yeah, I thought you were going to go into more detail there. Like, tell us a bit more about yourself. But I'm Kieran Parry. A short bit, I guess, is me and Mikey have we've known each other since university, like first year of university, and this is something that we've said for years we would start. It was just like some sort of podcast of just chatting about like films, TV shows, games, just anything. Not quite reviews, but sort of on that level, just like a conversation.
Conversations we already have, and it's literally just pressing record.
Like you said, we talk about this stuff all the time anyway. But it gives us a way of just being able to sort of publish it, and maybe other people agree with their opinions, maybe people don't, or it's also for us to look back on, like in years to come. Like, yep, we were productive at one stage. We did do something that was a bit more meaningful than just playing the games or watching the films. We did sort of, give something back, I guess. Is that how you want to look at it? I'm not sure.
Yeah, very luckily, and good timing, when we finally decided to do it, is in like one of our favourite film franchises, especially mine, to the point where I make the running joke that I said to my partner that I'm going to call my first, if we have a son, Bruce, and it'll be on the new latest Batman film. I'd straight up recommend it, even if you're not a Batman fan. I think it's a good thriller noir film. It has a lot more similarities to films like Seven and Zodiac, like Fincher films, than it does to other Batman films.
Yeah, it's like it's weird. It's a weird one, to be honest, because the film is called The Batman, but if you go in thinking it's a Batman film, like, it's kind of not. It's a weird one because yes, it's about Batman and the whole sort of Bat-verse, but in the nuts and bolts of it is it's a crime thriller. Like, it's a detective, which is what DC is, Detective Comics.
Oh yeah, without a shadow of doubt, over time it's become less campy, especially, funny enough, since the last time the Riddler was a villain in a Batman film. This is the least campy version of Batman we've ever had. If he was just wearing a suit like John Wick or something along those lines, and there wasn't like by name comic book villains in it, you wouldn't be able to tell it's a Batman film.
Are you on about Riddler's costume?
Well,
it's not just it's not like a flamboyant costume, and it's not just a simplified suit. There's a bit more of a sort of serial killer vibe around him, sort of thing. There's more of an unhinged.
100%. It's not too over the top, is he?
No,
don't get me wrong. He's definitely unhinged, Paul Dano's version of the Riddler, but he has mental health problems. He's not operatic quite as much as the Jim Carrey version we've seen. Well, a long time ago now. It would have been when we were kids, before 2000, Batman Forever.
Yeah, it's got to be, what was it, 97?
1995.
95. I think Clooney's was 97. Yeah, it was. Batman and Robin was 97. But yeah, I think this one it's a lot more grounded. If you want to put sort of an adjective to it, it's a lot more grounded in the sense that it's more believable. It doesn't feel like a superhero film as such. It's just, as said before, it feels like a detective crime thriller, and it feels believable, like this could actually happen. Despite the fact that there's a guy dressed as a bat. It just feels more real, and that's what I wanted from it. I mean, the thing that I wanted from it, from the first trailer, was it gave me such Arkham vibes, right? And I enjoyed the Arkham series a lot, right? To the point that I was a little bit disappointed that the Batman films didn't quite sort of gravitate to that sort of, the way I've envisioned Batman, at least. We got a little bit of it with Batflick. I liked his brooding personality, and that I liked the sort of brutality of his character in that one. But then in this one, it's gone the next step again. It's not just brooding; it's a lot more gothic sort of thing, and it's got that Arkham vibe, as I said. It's got I wanted Batman like fighting in the rain. I wanted more sort of fist close combat fighting and stuff. You know, I wanted to sort of, you know, the camera to hold back and me watch the fight rather sort of like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I loved the Nolan trilogy, right? But, you know, when Batman fought, the camera was quite close in on the action and you just saw, you know, a couple of punches land here and there through, you know, sort of, you see the punches land through like camera trickery. Whereas in this one, you actually see the punches land. Like, I mean, yes, they've got to do camera trickery anyway because you can't just beat, you know, your cast members up. But you could feel that the punches felt more landed. If you
Yeah,
get
it
my drift.
felt a lot more, felt more of impact, and because of that, it felt darker. Arbat's like is a good emotional Bruce. He plays like the tortured psyche well, and it's a realistic take of like of a young angry man like type of thing in the sense that he's the closest Batman to our generation, which is like probably another reason why like we like it more. But like he's emotive when it needs to be, as you say. There's times in the film where like he's absolutely smashing in to like some of like the lower level criminals or like the
Yeah,
cannon fodder per se, because he is just it's what you would be like. You would be angry, and like that's him just channeling it.
yeah, he's channeling it. I mean, granted, he's been doing it for 2 years. I think they say in the film, but he's still, you know, in those early phases of that brutality. He hasn't quite mellowed yet. You know, he's
Yeah,
still.
I think that's another good point. I couldn't agree more in the sense that we've both mentioned we're into like the Batman media, whether it be the Arkham games or whether it be like a little bit of the comics here and there. And like we've watched all the films a couple of times, but like we don't want to see Thomas and Martha get shot again.
Overdone, a bit saturated. You kind of just sort of like, yeah, we understand Bruce's origin by now. We've seen it more than enough times. And I mean, don't get me wrong. There's many different ways people can do it, and people can have their own different interpretations. And you know, at the end of the day, his mom and dad get pops, and he gets angry about it. You know, that's the crux of it. But you know, the way that Snyder did it, Nolan did it, Schumacher and Burton, you know, they all did their own sort of ways about sort of how to show Bruce in that light. Although I don't actually think Schumacher did it because wasn't Val Kilmer's meant to be a sequel to Keaton's, wasn't it?
Keaton's, yeah, it was. Yeah, it was meant to be.
Yeah, so we didn't see that bit of young Bruce then, did we? No.
No.
But my point still stands. You know, there are different ways that they highlighted it, but I'm just glad in this one it was sort of more. I feel when the mayor's kid, when I love that meme where it's Robert Pattinson's holding up the costume for Robin and he's pointing at him in like the funeral home, like this for you, like that made me crease. That did, but I love that. I love that. You know, we feel. Just they don't even say a word to each other. It's just the look, the stare they give each other. He's like, I know exactly
There's a
what
look
you're
of understanding and like
Yeah,
the look of empathy, and he knows what's going on. He
yeah.
knows what he can experience. Well, if we're going to we should get into specifics really, because we're a bit late to the boat per se, in the sense that the film's been out for over a month and we're doing this, but like we go to full on spoilers, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't think there's any need to hold him back now. I mean, if you wanted to see it, you should have seen it by now, at least. Like,
Yeah, well, we've both watched it twice. So I think that's a testament
yeah,
to how good we thought it
and
was.
I really want to watch it again.
Yeah.
Just reinvented Batman for me, I feel, and I'm excited to see where they go with it next as well. To be honest, because especially with the whole flooding of the city, spoilers, but the whole like sort of flooding the city, I really can see multiple possibilities, but I don't want to think of too many possibilities because I don't want to think, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen, overhype myself, and then it turns out that in the next film, the city's no longer on water and the flood barrier's been fixed, and that's it. And he's like, oh, all right then, I guess we're
Yeah,
moving on.
I know exactly what you mean, because where it left and like Bruce's arc for him to change to like, and we've discussed, and it was like he was very angry at the beginning, and he realised like he can be a force of hope. He can still like literally and metaphorically kick ass and save people, and like people won't flinch when they see him. Like, there's the scene near the very start of the film where he's saving somebody, and even after he stops this guy getting mugged, the guy's
But please don't hurt
crap in
me.
his pants. Yeah, please don't hurt me. And
Yeah.
how it does that. The only like, not to come off like get into a few cons of mine, and not to be like there is some. I do have some critical points of it. Is that I feel like the city going underwater does a bit of a Randy Orton and comes out of nowhere. There's
Mm.
no like foreshadowing or hints towards like bombs could be set up for that to happen or that could ever be a possibility. I'm not saying like, I like to think, as an audience, we're quite smart and we need it spoon fed, but it just comes out of nowhere. Which, I suppose from certain point of views, that could be a really good thing.
So you weren't keen on it sort of just being more of a surprise out of nowhere, or you do?
But I don't like that it came out of nowhere so much, type of thing.
No. See, I liked it because there were talks about his sort of master plan that not seeing the big picture, and at the end of the day, that is what Riddler's about. Is he's sending you on loads of different sort of riddles. The riddles are meant to be complicated, which I must admit they weren't overly complicated in the film. They weren't like difficult riddles, but they're meant to sort of send you on a goose chase while the bigger picture is happening in the background, and it's about when he goes to see him in the prison. Is he in Arkham? I believe he's in Arkham because Joker's there, isn't he? So, but
Yeah, well, that is probably my biggest gripe, and I know it's only a niggly thing, but I'm glad you've mentioned it. Is that it introduces a character which the fan base are like extremely fatigued by. Like
yeah,
within the last 20 years, like we could really IMDb it, but this is just off the top of my head. We've had him in the Suicide Squad, The Dark Knight, obviously, Arkham Games, and that's
Joaquin
without the
Phoenix.
animated media, and without and his own film, and that's within just probably the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah,
And this, what I liked for the most part until they tried to shoehorn the Joker in, and admittedly, I'm making it sound like he's in it for 25 minutes or something. He's literally in it
yeah,
for 30 seconds.
yeah.
If that, but I don't know. To its credit, the film really stands well without a Joker appearance, and that's one of the good things about it.
It wasn't massively necessary. But did you watch the deleted scene?
Yeah, I watched the deleted scene. I think the deleted scene, for what it's worth, is really good.
Yeah, I think they did
like
a good job actually deleting that scene from the film. I like that I've been able to watch it since, right? But if it was in the film, it would have taken away from Paul Dano's Riddler.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree
Yeah.
more.
So I like that it's not in the film, but at the same time, I didn't. I mean, I didn't overly mind the Joker's sort of appearance. Although for the first sort of I don't know, 10 seconds, I actually thought it was Harvey Two-Face, just because of the way the scars and everything were. And then obviously you start hearing the laugh, and you're like, wait, no, it's the Joker. And then you kind of like, oh, of course I put the Joker in it. And you're like you say, he's kind of been overdone, and we're a bit fatigued from it. But don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the character of the Joker. I love the sort of chaos behind it. As it's been so expertly put in Dark Knight, some men just want to watch the world burn. And I like that philosophy of the Joker. He just does things.
The Joker is one of Batman's greatest villains, but he's not the only great villain. And
No.
that's what I feel like the trouble is. It's it's setting up the character for the new franchise already, and it just seems a bit rushed. And it doesn't need that. It's doing really well on its own,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I got to admit, I had quite a low opinion of Riddler. I didn't think too much of his character anyway. I've come across him in some of the comics and that, and then in the games, and then Jim Carrey's Riddler. It's not the greatest portrayal of the Riddler. I didn't know what to think of Riddler going into the film, but not just credit to Paul Dano, but also Matt Reeves. How they brought
the cinematography as well, and the direction, as you say.
Greg Fraser, yeah.
The very first frame you see the Riddler in, it's not.
You just get his
most scary. Yeah, it's not the most scary thing you'll ever see in your life, but it does take you back. He just appears there under like lightning per se, and in a dark room, and he just
Well, actually, no.
pretty good.
The first time we get an essence of the Riddler is through his little camera spying on them. Quite a nice sort of haunting sort of take. And when you consider that moment, right, compared to Jim Carrey wearing a leotard with question marks all over it, it's a drastic change.
It's done really well, but that's why, again, I am, as you say, I'm glad that Joker was a deleted scene. And
Mhm.
to keep on to, like, to do the old pro and con list, I didn't have a problem with it because I love Batman and I could have watched it for 4.5 hours. But it
Yeah.
does have some issues with it being too long for certain people, I can imagine.
See, I'm
It's
not. If it's solid and it keeps me engaged, if you're pushing on 5 6 hours, I can maybe I need to change ass cheeks, maybe go to the toilet or something, break. Because I watched Zack Snyder's Justice League. I watched it all in a 4 hour sitting, and I genuinely enjoyed it. I genuinely enjoyed my time watching it. I wasn't worried about the time, like, oh, this is getting on now, anything like that. So if a story can keep me engaged and keep me interested, I don't mind sitting down for that longer period of time. It just becomes, I guess, more of a problem. If you go to the cinema, you're kind of throwing yourself in for that, that period. But if you're like at home or something, you've only got like a spare couple of like hour and a half or something, you're not really going to have time to sit down and watch a 3 4 hour film.
Yeah, it's definitely a film you've got to devote time to and you've got to settle in for. You can't just think, oh, I've put the kids to bed now, or like I've got a
Yeah,
half hour to squeeze in before work or whatever. It is definitely a film you could settle down in. I think with its 3 hour runtime, it, there is some things I would have chopped and changed with Alfred getting blown up and him
mm.
recovering. It seems a bit cliche with like all the scenes leading up to that is Bruce pushing Alfred away, and I don't think he says the line "You're not my dad," but he virtually does, and it just seems a bit stereotypical of like the character, like the hero character feeling spurred on. And don't get me wrong, I think for the performance which was asked for him, Andy Serkis smashes it. He plays like a quite a caring badass Alfred,
Yeah,
and
he's got
he
more
does.
sort of like gruff about him, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's definitely got more of a gruff like type of feel about him. Who like he's been put into this position to essentially be a father to Bruce, and he's done
Yeah.
well with what he's got, and I think that comes across really well. But I think I would have just wanted more of that.
I like that Alfred was put a bit more in a precarious situation compared to other Alfreds we've seen in the past. They gave us something a little bit new with Alfred. I felt, it wasn't just like the British butler, but there was a bit more to his character, a bit more to his edge. In Nolan's Batman's, where Alfred was like spent some time in Burma and he found some jewels, trying to hunt a jewel thief, and you get a little bit of
Yeah,
inklings about that. Whereas with circuses, you can kind of see, like through his attitude, through his mannerisms, that he has that ability. Sort of if Alfred came in a fair 1v1 fight, you could see Circus's Alfred
you could
winning
see
that fight.
Circus like smashing you in the jaw and like, going to town, like stamping on you, and that's what I felt quite interested. It's probably the youngest Bruce we've ever had, and the youngest Alfred we've ever had. I think to Alfred's credit, he does like he's constantly useful throughout the film to Bruce's crusade, like, and
Mm,
as I say, I know you can't like it doesn't fit with the emo like and like psyche of this new Bruce for him to be
yeah.
grateful and appreciative of that. But I feel like all of the scenes he seems to be pushing Alfred away, and we would have cared more if he had like I know if it was just another 5 minute scene. I know I've said it's too long, but I would have took out the club scene with Gil. The club scene with Gil, I appreciate is probably more of a vehicle to like for a bit of
Yeah.
background character
I,
arc for
I want to.
Selena.
I want to taken it out. I probably would have just shortened
Reduced
it
it
a
maybe.
little bit.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I mean, we haven't mentioned her yet, but Zoe Kravitz, she did an amazing job as Catwoman as Selena Kyle. Like, I genuinely understood Selena a lot more in this film than I have in any other iteration as such. I understood
Yeah.
plight, as it were. And I don't want to sort of. You're talking about removing some runtime from this particular kill scene in the club, right, in the Iceberg Lounge. But I do think that scene itself could have just been tweaked just a little bit. But I really liked that because of how Bruce was instructing her through sort of the eye camera lens thing.
The contact lens type of thing.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
you would have been able to like reduce it enough, and for it to be so still integral to the Zoe Kravitz chemistry, and for us to not like slag off the film too much or anything like that. I think what it does really well is it's Bruce's friendship and working relationship with the commissioner and Catwoman. So like both of them in the end obviously have a hand in saving him.
Yeah.
At the very end. But Zoe Kravitz, it makes you feel like not sympathetic, because like that's one of the reasons the character's so good, is that she doesn't need your sympathy, but you can understand where she's coming from. Like she's simultaneously badass and a bit vulnerable.
Yeah, she's not waiting around for Batman to save her. She's not waiting for the White Knight to save her or anything like that. She's capable of doing things on her own. She just happens to be teaming up with Bruce because it lines within her interests.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
and not like
she's not the whole damsel in distress. It's there's none of that. You don't get any of that sense, which is nice and refreshing, to be honest.
Not like we've got too much of an authority on this subject because we're two straight white guys, but at the same time, like she's not overly sexualized. Thinking about the film as a whole, there's no real performance.
It was lackluster or anything.
Yeah, that was lackluster, or that took me out of the film because it was disappointing.
I mean, talking about taking out of the film, right? What seriously brought me into the film was Colin Farrell. I mean, his prosthetics was absolutely insane. I mean, I watched the trailer and I saw Colin Farrell's name and I was like, so who's Colin Farrell playing? Like, he was so unrecognizable. And it wasn't until like halfway through the film there was a moment. I think it was actually in the car chase, right, where he's like, I got you, and then Bruce does the jump, right, and he sort of turns back, like sort of looking past the B pillar in the car, right?
Yeah.
And there's sort of just a look. There's a glint in his eyes, and you're like, "There's Colin. There he is." But I thought he did a fucking brilliant job. Like you can't. I've always enjoyed Colin's work, but he's never had like the best films. He's never had the greatest scripts to work with, and I'm glad to finally see him get his due. Because I remember seeing him in a film called The Phone Booth, right?
Yeah, it's quite a low-key good film, that is.
It's a low-key brilliant film. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I remember seeing that thinking, oh, I really like this guy. What else has he been in? I've watched all his other films, and like none of them have sort of been up to that same level as that film. I thought, Colin's got this talent, but he's not being
utilized. It's a good Colin Farrell film, and Seven Psychopaths is quite good.
Yeah,
but as you say, like he deserves.
Yeah, I feel like he's underrated. He's overlooked for certain things, and I feel like with this role, he should be able to get a lot more work. I'm not saying he's struggling for work. I mean, I don't know him. He probably is, probably isn't. I don't know, but I'm just saying that he needs a bit more appreciation, and I do feel that this role was made for him, and I am so looking forward to see where they take the role next.
Well, they've discussed him having like in the HBO Max TV show.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's getting a spin-off or something.
Yeah, set off, a spin-off, and so I think that has a lot of potential. And again, like one of the other like great roles we've like touched on a little bit in it, and it's done well in the Dark Knight trilogy because at the end of the day, Gary Oldman plays Commissioner Gordon, and Gary Oldman is amazing. Jeffrey Wright as Gary Oldman is Jeffrey Wright as Gary Oldman. Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon is really good, and that has like, I know some people have complained that the film's a bit very dour and it isn't funny. I actually like, whether it's my dark sense of humor or what, I laughed the most throughout their interactions. Gordon's interactions is incredibly deadpan and like sarcastic, and
Yeah.
it leans towards like, I'm not saying Americans or like Europeans or anybody like can't understand it, but it leans to quite like British humour, if you catch my drift.
The sort of dry humor, yeah.
When he gets like punched and he gets his like he escapes in the
And the
with the
station.
police after him in the police
Yeah.
station.
The way they edited that in the trailer as well made it look like Bruce was mugging him off, mugging Gordon off, saying he was the guy with the mustache and the broken nose. And Gordon's like, who? And then he's like, smashes Gordon in the face and runs off, right? It made it look like Bruce was just going rogue. But then in the film, obviously, he's on about the other guy. I can't even remember his name, but the other
Yeah, the other
cop that works.
the bent cop like type thing.
Yeah, that works at the Iceberg Lounge. It was about him, but it was the way it was edited. I was like, oh, I like that. That was clever. But yeah, like I was like, obviously sat next to you in the cinema. You were cackling loads of random moments in the film. So it's definitely got some like light-hearted moments and funny moments. It's not just a dark, brooding film. Although that's what I was invested in. But I did enjoy it, and like as you say, Jeffrey Wright's portrayal of Gordon was absolutely superb. It was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. He brought enough of Gary Oldman's role into it, but he also made it his own as well, which was really nice. There's still a lot of leeway in his characters, even though they've been portrayed a million times. There's still new areas to explore.
I think what he does really well in it is to play a normal, relatable guy in a mad world. In like he's just trying to help out and get by, like, and
yeah,
he's not like a bent copper. He's not Superman. He's not like a super villain. He's just being a good guy as much as he can, and he's
just doing his job.
level-headed. Yeah, he's just doing his job as best as he can. Like,
speaking of funny moments, I remember the bit that tickled me quite a bit was when Bruce is going to the mayor's crime scene, and then he goes past that cop. I can't remember if that cop's got a name. Was it Hernandez?
Yeah, that's it. It was something along those lines.
He goes like freak, right? And then later on at the funeral, it's like, "Hey, Bruce Wayne!"
Yeah, and he's like fanboys over Bruce Wayne, like. Yeah.
I find that
like,
bit.
How's it going, Mr. Wayne? And he's like, yeah, you proper fanboys, isn't it?
Yeah, I love that bit. I remember saying to you after we came out of the cinema, right? You know the guy that Bruce beats up right at the end of the film? He takes off his mask, and it's that guy that was like talking to him at the funeral, right? Yeah. And he was like the guy that was all scarred up, and he was sort of like leaning over, right? I thought, like a few moments before Bruce has that conversation with that guy, right? There's that kid that tries to push his way into the funeral, like past the police, and they sort of push him back.
Yeah.
I didn't quite understand that dynamic there. I didn't understand because I felt like that kid was meant to resemble something, because I was like, oh, like the camera showed me that guy trying to push in, and the police pushed him back. They lit his face quite well, so he's not like a throwaway character. Oh, I need to remember this dude's face because he's going to be important later. And we don't see him again. We actually see the other guy. I wasn't quite sure what. There's something cut out there, or something I'm missing, or I don't know. But that was, for me, probably one of the standout moments that I was like, wait, what?
Not so much that it's inconsensual, but like, what was the point for the bigger picture?
Yeah, and then the other moment was when the car chase, right? He gets in the car, he fires up the engine. The sound design was absolutely amazing, right? And then Bruce sort of like goes, and then sort of stops. It's sort of like he's stalled or something, and he sort of gives like the Penguin and everyone time to run off, grab the bags of money, get in the car, and then drive off, and then he chases him. I didn't quite understand that sort of like room. I don't know if it was like a taunt or what, but in the moment I was like, I was like, what? Did he stall? I just felt like they had such an epic moment, and then they kind of just sort of they just lost that sort of the energy that they built up. It kind of it went flat in a moment, and then of course you have that amazing car chase, the amazing camera angles. I don't know. I feel like it's a Nolan camera angle since he did Interstellar, and he got the cameras on the side of the ship rather than showing the whole ship. And you sort of like when the ships and everything were landing on the planets and everything, you sort of got like a POV sort of shot where the camera's attached to it. Whereas in the car chases and stuff you see now, you got cameras like just behind the rear wheel, and you can see like the brakes lighting up and everything. You've got that sort of like you feel more in it, and I don't know if that's something that Nolan sort of pioneered or what. I could be wrong there, but I really like how they're introducing these sort of cameras into the cinema now, where they're putting the cameras right in the action.
They're being more experimental. Like,
yeah, and the camera's being thrown around because the back of the car is being thrown around as it's like skidding around trucks and stuff in the chase, and I really enjoyed that.
you can argue, like, I know, like Zack Snyder's films, especially like Justice League and like Batman vs Superman and Watchmen and like 300. I'm not saying those are ugly films, but like the Batman is a beautifully shot film.
Yeah.
And like to Zack Snyder's credit, he is stylized, and myself included, for what it's worth. I've just racked off his films. I like that they're a stylized thing, but like it is a totally different style in the Batman.
Yeah,
there is
I
like
actually watched
some
a
mad
video
cool
the
shots.
other day about the sort of cinematography that was used in the Batman and how they used the anamorphic lenses and how they sort of used the sort of the build up of the city. That's something we have not mentioned, right? The quite possibly the most important character in the whole of the Batman film,
It's Gotham,
right? Is Gotham. Yeah. I've never felt like Gotham has been a real place before. You know, in all due respect to Nolan's, it was like, oh, that's Chicago. Whereas I genuinely believe that Gotham was a real place in the Batman. Like the lighting, the neon lights, the just the way we followed Bruce through the city when he was just wearing like his civilian clothes. You know, he's got his hood up and all that, and he's on the bike.
But I know, like, Batman 1989, Keaton. Like, I love
Yeah,
the 1989 film. I think that's great. I think
yeah.
that feels very like the Gotham in that may feel a bit cartoonish and over the
It
top.
does.
I
It does.
like
It
the
does
I
a
like
bit
the
now.
Gotham
Yeah,
in that because that, like, again, because it is a bit over the top. Again, that feels like its own character. But yeah,
yeah,
I think it is. I don't know. It does make you feel like you're a bit deeper into the film, and it feels like it could pop out. It's not. You're not jumping into a fairy tale world. Quite the
no,
opposite, in fact. It's something which does. I don't know how it fits. Well, how much I like it, and something I'm torn by, and I'll
yeah,
be interested to hear what you think of it. Is that Bruce never really feels in much physical danger, and he wipes the floor with everybody. And you can argue that like one of the positives, like we've hit on, is that it's more of a mental thriller, and it's not like
yeah.
an action film. But he never physically feels outmatched throughout it, and until the very end, the action scene, like with the like Riddler, like quote unquote school shooters, and all of a sudden, like where it'd be like not entirely original saying this, but it could have just finished with Riddler getting arrested. Batman didn't really feel in much physical danger until that point. But
Yeah, I feel like he definitely, he wiped the floor with everyone he came across, and I think the big reason for that was the fact that he was basically indestructible to everything. You
yeah,
know, the other Batmans, if you got shot, you got shot. Whereas, you know, Battinson, he gets shot and he walks it off. It's like, yeah, my suit can take it, sort of thing.
I think he has like 3 or 4 action scenes before the very end on with the like Riddler shooters, and in all of them, like including the really cool one from the trailer with like the
Oh,
flashing of the assault rifles.
that is,
Yeah, obviously, for what it's worth, you probably wouldn't change that one at all because it's a great, like, it's really cool. But
it's so cinematic. It's amazing.
so you've got that one, and then his first introductions being Batman when he's on the subway. So I'll probably leave them two as it is. But in the middle there, there's room for him to get like battered a bit.
You could do a moment, Alfred's in the hospital or something, and then Bruce gets battered, and while he's sort of recuperating, that's when you can see Alfred and he can see the mistakes he's done, and that could then sort of make that emotional moment a bit more intense, I guess, because Alfred's been blown to shit, and then Bruce has been beaten to shit,
Yeah,
and they come together in this moment, realizing we need to be better.
you could justify why the film's quote unquote slowed down a bit because they've both been knocked
Yeah,
back a
we're
bit.
both at that moment.
Whether you
of
think I'm
people being.
contradicting myself or not, one of the things I did like, and this
Mm,
is I was a bit apprehensive like going into the film
yeah,
because Robert Pattinson hadn't got jacked, and like whether it's because I wish I was as jacked as the comic book Bruce Wayne deadlift meant to deadlift 500 kilograms and like he can bench press something like fucking 300 at least, but
yeah,
they do a good job of Arbats being threatening and he isn't incredibly jacked. Like as you say, you look at Batfleck. I'm pretty sure Ben Affleck's 6'5", and he done some beastie workouts. There's actually a couple of workout montages in the film.
yeah,
Where he's deadlifting and like he's chucking like he's a bit crossfitty and like he's doing the ropes and stuff. But
yeah,
I think they do that well. And like it looks like he's using Wing Chun and he's using mixed martial arts when he's absolutely smashing people on the subway.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, the sort of visualization as well of the sort of art that Batman goes through. I mean, this is nothing to do with Batman getting beaten up or anything now, but sort of at the beginning of the film, you've got Bruce stood over these people, beating the shit into this guy right before the sort of subway fight, right? I say subway, it's actually the monorail, but
Yeah, we say that. Yeah, I suppose we've been corrected. You fair point because it is it is an underground type thing.
And then, but at the end of the film, Bruce is helping that girl into the helicopter sort of evacuation chairlift sort of thing. I don't even know what it's called. The basket that
Like a
takes them up.
stretcher type of thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like the helicopter stretcher, right? And he's sort of like holding her, and he lifts it up, and he's kind of like the beginning of the film. He's gone from being vengeance to being hope.
Yeah, and that is the like arc
That's
of the
the
film,
arc.
which is
That
done
is the
really
arc.
well.
There we go. We're done.
And that is done well, and like he embodies the emo and the anger, and then towards the film he realizes like he can help people. You can like
You can be
kick
more.
ass, and you can be more. And you can But no, I don't think this. I think we've covered a lot really.
Yeah, we have.
And
We've waffled a lot, yeah.
Yeah, we've waffled a lot. Both said probably the most fleshed out Catwoman we've had, which is funny, really, because Anne Hathaway played the last live action version of her.
Yeah,
That's
and
no
it's not
slight
like,
on her. It's no
yeah,
slight on Anne
there's
Hathaway. Anne Hathaway
nothing.
is an incredible actress.
No, there was nothing wrong with her, Selena, at all. You compare their runtime together, I reckon Zoe got, over 200% more runtime, most likely.
Yeah, it was refreshing to see a new cast of villains for a film for a while. It's like the last time we saw Danny DeVito
Yeah, Penguin.
as Penguin. I don't know. What did I 1995 Batman Forever was. So it was basically
92?
Batman Returns was probably 92. Yeah. So again, 20 years. Yeah, 20 years this year. Then we probably last saw Penguin on the silver screen.
Yeah.
It was good to see prominent mastermind villains like the Riddler and like Penguin. Oh, and another random like performance, which is absolutely gold, considering we saw John Turturro most recently blockbuster films, big films. Well, not most recently, but his comedy role in the Transformers trilogy, and he plays an absolute badass, abusive. Well, again,
Carmine.
we're in spoilers now. Carmine and Carmine Falcone is so mythology. I didn't think I would like, but it works really well. Is the father to Selena?
Yeah, like you called it out of the woodwork straight off. You could just see where that was going, and I don't know how I feel about that. It felt like a little bit of a cop out that like everyone has to be related to everyone in order to make everything make sense, and for vengeance and retaliation and all that to make sense. So I feel like we've seen it before, we've lived it before, but did it ruin the film? Did it ruin my experience? No.
No, I don't think. Yeah, you're all right. Like you feel like, did it have to be a thing? It probably didn't, but it wasn't to its detriment. It didn't ruin it.
No.
I didn't feel mega attached to any of the victims of of Riddler type of thing, but I think that's more of a deeper thing. I think you're saying just because these people are having affairs with people in like strippers or they're on the take, which is it's not good things that they're having affairs or they're dirty cops, but does it mean they should get brutally murdered? Probably not. So,
Probably not. Maybe not.
no, maybe not.
Yeah.
You know, if you did that in real life, then, well, 20% of the population wouldn't be here, I suppose. But, you know, it's one of them, isn't it?
Yeah.
But now I hope you've enjoyed our waffle on this.
We mentioned it at the beginning, but you know, would you pay to see the Batman again?
Yeah, well, we spoke about it for 50 minutes, but yeah, 100%. Well, I'd probably, I don't know if I'd pay to see it again for the third time, but that's because it'll be my third viewing. I'll definitely watch it.
Yeah. I think I probably would pay to see it again. I mean, I'm going to in order to buy it, so I can keep
Yeah.
it forever. But yeah, it's not one that you should miss. I don't think. I mean, definitely try and see it in the cinema before it's no longer at the cinema, because the color space and everything you get from a cinema screen and the sound design is amazing. You don't quite get that once you watch that, you know, on your TV, your laptops, your
I want
phones.
to take it full advantage.
I mean, is it necessary to see it in IMAX? If you've got the option, you know, money's not a struggle for you at this moment in time. You know, definitely give it a go, because you will not be disappointed. But you know, IMAX doesn't make the film that much better. It just gives you that better experience, that, you know, that crisper sound design, that better screen size. But
Yeah, that's what we think, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed listening to this. And if you, for some reason, you've been on the fence to see it, I hope this has let you either way, or we spoke about it for a long time. And if you've
yeah,
been umming and ahhing, you've made the decision, or thinking, oh, it's not for me, or thinking it is for me. And either way, you feel more informed and not in a boring, drony way. And we do apologise if it was.
it's just if you haven't seen it, sorry for spoiling it.
Yeah, and if you have seen it and you like hearing us talk about it, like, listen to the next episode, because it'll be even
tune in next time for the next one.
Tune in next time, because the next episode will be even better, because we would have discussed what went really well, and maybe a few things did go wrong. But
what was the from the 60s? Tune in next week, same bat time, same bat channel.
We don't know when this is going out, but same back channel. Yeah.
Yeah. I have no idea how to close this out, but yeah, here we go. Sponsored by no one.
Because this is our first episode.
Thanks for listening. See ya.